election coverage by Town Meeting Television. This is one of many forums we are bringing you in advance of local elections and town meeting on the first Tuesday in March 1st, 2022. Town meeting is traditionally where voters weigh in on local government representation, municipal budgets, school budgets, and local ballot items. All candidates on the ballot are invited to participate in Town Meeting TV election forums. Town Meeting TV election forums introduce you to community decision makers and connect you with the issues that shape your local community. If you are watching this live, we welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. Again, if you're watching this live, we do welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. You can watch Town Meeting TV on Comcast channel 1087, Burlington Telecom channels 17 and 217, as well as online at Town Meeting TV's YouTube page. You can simply type that into Google. That's what I do. You just type Town Meeting TV and you should find the YouTube page and find live, or you can find it under playlist and you can find your city or region or community. That being said, this evening we are here speaking about the Winooski school budget. And I am fortunate enough to be here with dedicated school board members, Alex Yin, as well as Kamal Dahal. And they are here presenting the Winooski budget, the Winooski school budget, and welcome and thank you. And please feel free to present.
Thank you, Annie. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, it's great. Good. Perfect.
So good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Kamal Dahal, a school board member, and I am joined today by Alex Ian, a fellow school board member. So the intention tonight, obviously, is to present the public budget for 2022-2023 school year. Alex and I will be taking turns walking through the presentation, and as the host, Annie, said that we have some time reserved after the presentation for public comments and questions. And just to repeat the phone number that Annie said, it's 802-862-3966. So with that, let's go to slide 2, please. So we begin our presentation with our school's end statement. It's displayed in the slide here, but I think it's worth reading it out loud. All students will graduate from the Winooski School District, college and career ready, at a cost supported by a majority of Winooski community. Winooski School District students will lead healthy, productive, and successful lives and engage with their local and global community. So this end statement is both our mission and vision statements, guiding all of our policy decisions. We assess each of our decisions, especially the decision of our priorities for upcoming years, and of course the budget to achieve those priorities. And we ensure that our priorities all align and support our end statement. Can we go to slide 3, please? Okay, so this one highlights the Winooski School District graduate expectations. As you can see here, critical thinking, communication, well-being, creativity, persistence, culture, and community are key expectations we have from our graduates. We monitor our expectations by ensuring that our students graduate with the list of proficiencies, which will be listed on the following slide. So, as you can see, the list of Winooski School District graduate proficiencies includes proficiencies in writing, speaking, civil discourse, critical reading, non-native language, setting goals, physical health, proficiencies in visual arts, STEM, design, math, and scientific reasoning, cross-cultural engagement, financial literacy, and so forth. So let's go to the next slide. So this slide list some of the amazing highlights from previous year 2021. We had 3 presidential scholars for 2021, Hussein, Evelyn, and Penny. Congratulations to them, by the way. We have anti-racism work going on, and of course, the capital project. So now pivoting to our current enrollment data. As you can see here, we had 74 total enrollments for pre-K, 354, I'm sorry, for K to 5, 154 for middle school, and 220 for high school enrollments, totaling 799 students. So this slide shows the population breakdown of our students. As you can see, 62% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. 35% are multilingual learners, and 28%, almost 1/3 of our students meet the eligibility and are being supported due to a disability. Just a side note here on the previous slide, we've adopted using the word multilingual learners instead of English language learners or ELL recently to ensure that the primary or native language of our students are not seen as a liability for them and instead seen as asset for their growth. So with that, let's welcome Alex to discuss the budget highlights and key investments.
So thank you, Kamal. I mean, as you can see that our community is always changing, and there's been some exciting things that are happening, especially with the capital project. One of the things that we realized as part of the key investments that we really wanted full year busing. And as you can see with the current code, it's kind of brutal to have our children walking in some of this -9-degree weather. And I think we're putting the investments in busing because we understand that students who are in school learn better than students who don't go in school. We also have created space and understand that there's been a strong need for pre-K programming. And that means that with the new spaces that we have, that the community has invested in, we have room for additional 2 classes, which means that we also need new positions to actually staff those classes so that the community can grow along with the space that we are creating. Of course, the space that we created, and I want to remind folks that like one of the main reasons why we wanted the expansion of the school was that the school was actually developed for only 600 students. And as you saw from the previous numbers, there are 800 students. But with that expanded space, we also need a custodian to help maintain and so that we have that kind of maintenance of that staff so that it's there for the long term. The other 2 types of investments that we're doing on is looking at a power school manager, which is kind of like the technology to really help us understand and better inform the knowledge, the needs of our students as we move towards a proficiency, as we have been in the proficiency-based education, and a school district registrar who often all these kind of activities have been passed on to other administrators or teachers that are not allowing them to focus on what we want them to focus on, which is teaching. The other investments that we have seen is that we're actually transitioning some of the federally funded positions that we've had that were federally funded that are now to our local budget, and that's going to be a 1.25 FTE. And then there's this capital project debt service. We're going to have to start paying back some of that loans. But with that said, I got to admit, I've been so impressed with our administration as we're making plans to figure out how do we make the debt burden less as we move forward with our capital project. So what does this mean from a number standpoint? This means basically we're asking, we're going to see a $1.78 million increase in our overall budget. And if you can see where the percentages are, you can see a large percentage of that money is in that transportation. We're estimating property taxes to be about 6.03%, but let me get into that a little bit more as we talk and move forward. And what that means on the estimated education spending per equalized pupil increase is about 24.5%. So here's where the budget highlights are, is that, and let me, is that you see the 9.08% increase that we've mentioned. And then you can see that we had a decrease in 6%. And you're wondering like, wait, Alex, You just said that we have 800 students. Why are these numbers saying that we have 974 and now it's a decrease to 912? And that is a very good question. And one of the things that what we have learned in education is that it costs certain amounts of money to educate students at a certain level. And in 1997, the state actually said, you know, it's going to cost us more money to educate high school students. It's going to cost us to educate certain other types of students. And that's where those numbers kind of like are calculated to see how many students that we have. I'm going to, on a future slide, kind of show you what that really means, because I'm going to tell you, since 1997, we've gotten better on understanding who our students are. And like we've, as a school board, has collaborated with other school boards to say that we need to update that system so that we can properly educate our students at a tax rate that actually helps with our own local community. But on the warrant, you will see that we have increased our spending per student 24.1%. And you go, what is the tax rate calculations? And really, and people will say that this is complex, but there is a couple of ways of how tax rate calculations are come. One is based on the homestead tax rates. That's what, if you, those who own property. And basically, there are three levers that are influencing the tax rate. One is education spending, which leads into the per pupil spending, equalized pupils. That is what your local school board has the most control of when we're designing the budget and how we're actually trying to meet the needs of all of our students. The per pupil sale in the town tax rate, that's actually a combination of all the school boards putting them all together, and then the state has to figure out how to fund that actions. Often this is the yield, and this is often the hardest part, that we can't necessarily always predict the tax rate that we can give you, because these numbers don't come in until after the town hall meeting vote on March 1. And then the town tax rate, which is basically the home tax rate, this is the CLA, and this is basically the notion of like how much is your property worth, and it's based off on a scale of 1.0 to usually from 0.8, and basically it's kind of estimating how much is your property really worth. And note, we haven't in Winooski actually had a CLA update in a while, and so our CLA is actually around 0.76, which means that at 0.8, usually at state levels, we're supposed to update all of our property values at this time. But because of COVID, that has kind of been delayed a little bit. You can see also for those who don't own property, and I'm going to show you that there's actually a mixture between property rates and tax rate income, a mixture that if you the tax rate, if you're paying based off of your income, is going to be dependent on the per pupil spending and also on the income yield. I've got to admit, trying to explain Vermont's tax code in just 3 minutes, I hope I gave somewhat of a good test space. And I'm looking at Annie here, I'm going like, see, she's smiling like, okay, Alex, you kind of did a decent job, but don't worry. We have a video that you can watch on the Vermont's like taxpayer piece and really kind of help you explain. And I really do recommend that you go to that and kind of watch the video and read it, because they worked hard on doing it, and it is often hard to kind of explain the whole process. And so people are asking, well, how does this work? And why I had to explain the whole household and income. Well, it's because when you say, how does it affect my taxes? I really need to get to know your info, maybe a little bit too personal information. Like I need to know your income and your household property and all that, because if you're below 90,000, it's really based on a flat rate in in fiscal year 22 is 2.49. In fiscal year 23, we're predicting a 2.55%. If your income is between, a household income is between 90,000 and 138,500, it's actually going to be a combination of your house value and your property tax credit and your income. And then if your household income is above 138,500, it's solely based on house value. Okay. And we actually have these kind of cool charts to actually show you what you paid in fiscal year 22 if you were between the 90, if your household income was below 90,000 and below, you can see the difference. So if you're making 90,000, your overall yearly increase is going to be about $54 in terms of the overall income and in terms of how your taxes impacted. This is also now the middle group of those who are between like 90,000 and 138. Then we have to actually also look at how your household income, assessed house value is. And you can see the differences in terms of your tax rates and what it would mean on a yearly basis. please note that if you notice, I'm not saying only if, it's only increase, because I understand that this is a hard time for everybody, especially as we are dealing with another COVID situation and the cost of inflation is here. But I want to see, and I hope that you're seeing that you notice that I also use words of like investments. Like these were real strategic investments that we were making in terms of actually improving the school and really helping our community grow with the school. As many of y'all know, in my 5 years here on the school board, I've often said that the school is the heart of the community. As long as we grow our heart, we'll also grow the Winooski school, Winooski community together. And that's what makes this a special place to live in. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do anything for yourself, but we really encourage you to like look at the property tax relief forms. And if you haven't done so, please fill out the HI 144 forms. I know through my own mortgage company that they fill it out for me, but double check that your company is doing the same thing, because you do get tax relief on that when you complete those forms. And it's going to be based on your household income, whole value, and the school tax rate of the district. So know that there are small things that you can do to help you with helping with the taxes. I mentioned earlier that the education rate is based on on equalized pupils. And I'm going to say in the last year, our school board and I have been working hard to testify for the legislation to update the pupil weights, because the current law, as I mentioned, shows you that we had 912. But if we actually use the study, this was a study done by UVM and Rutgers to say, hey, you know, your weights are a little bit outdated, and we're not actually creating a system that allows you to properly educate your students. And we really need to revise these students. And because if you notice, we have a multilingual language group, and because we don't have a lot of children from from large means and social economic status levels, it takes more to educate those students to a certain degree. And there are proud investments that I think that we made, including, you know, putting like healthcare within our school district. We don't pay the doctors, but we build the space for them to actually have that, so that we know that healthy students learn better when they're not having the sniffles. And it also meets the needs of our community members and our parents who don't necessarily have the time to take their students to take their child to a doctor. They can actually use the services that are within the school. And you can see that like 912 versus 1200, there's a large difference in how the state sees the students. And you can also see how that would have impacted our tax rate. And so we are working tirelessly, and we encourage you, and you'll see on the last slide about who you can contact. I encourage you to contact our state legislators, our senators, about having them approve the weights, because it would help our community a lot. Just on a base of the budget here, I just want you to know that you're actually going to be voting on two budgets when it comes to the ballot. One's going to be the federal budget that we want you to vote. And we hope that everybody votes yes on that, because this is the federal money that they give to us to help educate the students that we have in our community. Voting yes on this is very important, because if you vote no, well, this is going to come out of our own local budget and stuff. And so I'm hoping that you're paying attention, and not just, you know, regardless of whether you like our budget or not, please at least vote yes on the federal budget and say, yes, this is actually taxes that we already paid at the federal level that we want to utilize for our own local community and stuff. Just to be fair, and I want to be transparent about like the money that we have here in our capital reserve and our fund balance. We built out $320K in our capital balance reserve, and that I think is actually something that we need to do and build up. This came very useful 3 years ago when one of the main pipelines burst at the school, and I joked that we were creating our own ice hockey rink, but that's not what we were doing. It was because the pipes were over 100 years old and they burst. And one of the things that when we were projecting on the capital planning project, people were going, well, why don't you build in the deferred maintenance? And I said, okay, we're going to start building our deferred maintenance budget here so that we make sure that we take care of that new building and the renovations that we've taken care of. I also want to say that we have a large fund balance of 2.92, and this was partly due to the fact, and it seems larger, mainly because our school administrators worked really hard to get us a very favorable loan from the USDA. And what we're thinking strategically is how do we use this money so that maybe we don't have to take out the full $57.8 million bond that the voters have authorized to vote, but maybe we can borrow a little bit less money, which will also save us long-term money. So I point these out because I want you to know that we're a very strategic school board that are thinking about our investments, protecting our investments. And I also want to say that we also made hard decisions. We looked at the range of students and where they are, and we had to make, we didn't just add, we also had to make some cuts to certain areas. So here's the caveats that I have to give you. Caveat is that this is all estimated based on the current information that we have. There's always revision at the state level. And if you have questions and if you have opinions of this, here are those numbers for you to call and kind of just share your thoughts. Taylor Small and Hal Golston are both of our Winooski state representatives. So please, if you have issues, don't forget to call them too. I'm sure they enjoy the phone calls. I just also want to give you more details. Like here, you can also contact any of the school board members that will want to be, that you want to talk to. I know we ran through the whole budget. I know there are people that love the detail. Here are the links where you can get the more detailed budget so that you can actually see. I also know that it's hard for sometimes to just call in on a TV show. Note that the city and the Winooski School District are gonna do another budget presentation. It's kind of gonna be a hybrid senior citizen, kind of hybrid in-person kind of approach. And it's gonna be done on Thursday, February 17th at 6:30 p.m. And we're gonna do that. And then there's also the annual meeting on February 28th that starts at 6 p.m. The city presentation will be virtual. The school presentation will be both, we'll be in person to vote for Articles 1 and 3, and then we'll do a virtual presentation at 7:45. I also want to just remind folks that, and I apologize for not putting this in the slide, is that this is an exciting time in our school, in our city, in our school district, because all residents can vote in Winooski. And there are going to be translation, and I apologize for not putting that slide. I know the city has done that part for themselves, but I hope everybody who can and are willing will vote and come out and be part of the community that we want you to be part of and be part of the decision making. So that's our presentation. Annie, do you have any questions or do we have any phone calls? We're ready.
That's great. First of all, well done, both of you. This is fantastic. There are currently no calls, but I did keep track of what you're saying. And I know that for me, some of, when I first started becoming engaged and involved in my community, I was needing to learn some things. So questions I would have if I did not better understand them now as I do are such things as, can you please repeat that important yes vote? You had discerned between the budget vote and an important yes vote that someone needed to do. Can you just repeat that very succinctly one more time, if you don't mind, Alexian?
I appreciate it, Annie, that you're letting me do this because there's going to be two votes. One is for the federal budget and one is going to be our school budget. Please pass.
And if you're a voter, what does that look like? What is the difference? Is there one that, do you know what the ballot looks like yet? Is that one first or second? How is that clear to me as a voter?
That is a good question, and I do not know yet. But
that's okay. It's a little early. It's not March yet. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
But yeah, if you see it, please read carefully that one is going to be the federal budget, and that is the one that uses federal monies to help our budget and stuff. And
so that's a yes. That's almost an.
I hope so.
You're asking for people to say yes to that one.
Definitely
Then
yes on that one. And then I won't influence you on the decision on the other one. That's
we
going to
can
be
look at the
informed.
presentation.
Right. I hope you vote yes, but I will, you know,
Sure.
right.
I'm sure your school board has worked hard on this. And then something that I never understood, which is what is a fiscal year and when does that start and end? I mean, I know now, but
Yeah, no, that is a very fair question. And those who live in the real world wish, why can't everything start from January to December, right? The fiscal year and is basically starts from July 1 to June 30th. It uses a midterm kind of approach and stuff.
so
So
when
what
you're
you're voting for is on a school budget for July 1, 2022 to go
To
all the way
2023.
until June 30th of 2023.
right,
But
so
thank you
that's
for that
what you,
question.
sorry.
So no, the thing, I was just saying thank you for the question.
So that's what you mean when you say fiscal. And then another question I always find amusing is what I always hear is fund balance, but I know it's fund balance. But can you just very briefly explain to people who might not understand what a fund balance is?
That's our safety net kind of thing, like a little bit of savings that we have for emergencies. Like, I wish we didn't always have to have it, but like I also realize that I don't live in a perfect world and emergencies do happen. And
Right,
it's
it's
good
healthy to have.
that. It's
Mhm.
healthy to have
Right.
on that level. And do know that we use it for strategic reasons, right? That people may ask, it's a good question about like people ask, why don't you use it to help lower the tax rates? And
Oh.
the Mike DeCaro, who was a former school board, was like, well, you'll pay it twice back in the future years.
Right.
Right. And so it really should be thought of as strategic investments on one-time things or emergencies. So it's a very good questions.
Great.
And I think, you know, I hope that you're trusting us as a school board that we have done some really good strategic actions for our school by using the fund balance in a very smart and fiscally responsible way.
Great. And then I think if you wouldn't mind repeating the dates for your presentation hybrid and location, if somebody wanted to go in person, and then your annual meeting date and time, if you can have, if you have those two things.
We're doing another City and Winooski District budget presentation that's going to be hybrid at the Winooski Senior Citizen Center, Senior Center on February 17th, starting at 6:30 p.m.
And that's also available online.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then we're also have an annual meeting, which is our basic one that's usually in the city presentation will be virtual. The school presentation, the first 15 minutes will be in person, but the rest will be virtual budget. And if you're asking why is it in person, well, it's because of how our charter is written, and we have to follow our charter rules and stuff.
Great. And then Kamal,
Yes.
did you have anything you needed to add? I didn't suggest that you did. I'm sorry.
No, Alex and I worked together on coming up with this presentation. So everything that I wanted to say, Alex said it already.
Great.
Cool.
Great. I think you've both done a great job. Here at Town Meeting TV, I know that Town Meeting TV is always grateful to those who work so hard in their communities, such as yourselves, and for the time you dedicate to the school board. Your community, I'm sure, is grateful, and we are grateful that you are involved in your community. And I personally am grateful to Town Meeting TV, especially during the pandemic, for what they have brought to all of our communities, for our ability to stay connected and interrelate and be together and better understand one another at this time. It's been so great.
And I'll say the same thing too. We're grateful for you giving us the opportunity to help the transparency of sharing this information with our community members. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for the Town Meeting TV station and giving us this opportunity. So thank
We
you.
appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Great. So I will close us out by saying thank you to those viewing for tuning into Town Meeting TV ongoing coverage of local community candidates, budget and ballot items. You can find this and more forums at www.ch17.tv. Don't forget to vote on or before the first Tuesday in March, Town Meeting Day, March 1st, 2022. Early voting by mail is available by contacting your town clerk's office. Polls will also be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, School Board Member Yin and School Board Member Dahal and Town Meeting TV. Thank you all so much.